What's going on at Shit Talk Reviews? I'm John, Derek in the house with me, and we're fortunate to have a special guest today. He's an award-winning author, writer, artist, comic book creator, one of the founders of Brooklyn heritage heavy band Life of Agony. He's in the Metal Hall of Fame. So with that, Mr. Alan Robert, thanks so much for joining us, man. We're really happy to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Where do we find you on the planet today?
Dirty Jersey, baby.
Dirty Jersey.
The dirty Jersey. Yeah. You were supposed to get snow last night, and it was just dusting.
I was out shoveling this morning.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it wasn't a dusting. Now, do you go out and do snow angels with your kids? You know, now that you're all grown up.
Nah, she's over that. You know, now she's driving. So we're past the snow angel phase.
Got it.
Never too old for snow angels, man. For sure.
Listen, Alan, it's great to talk to you. I've been a fan of Life of Agony going way back. I was in college radio when it came out. I used to work with, I don't know if you remember Jen Miola from Roadrunner.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, Jen was great. She sent me, I don't know, probably about 30 of your record to give away, you know, in northern Vermont. And people ate it up. You know, I used to play on the metal show this time, but you know, I've always wanted to ask you, years later, now that you reflect back, you've done all the anniversary records on that record. When you think of that, is there a word that comes to mind? Like, what does that record mean to you?
It was kind of ahead of its time, I think, because not everyone understood it at the time. Like, if you look at like, you know, I'm one of those pack rats that saves like all the old metal magazines and everything. So I have like the reviews of that record from like Metal Maniacs and stuff like that, going back in the day. And not everyone really got it at the time. Now it's looked at like a classic heavy record, but at the time it was like people didn't really know what to make of it. It was kind of hardcore, kind of metal. There's melody in here. Well, they're talking about suicide. You know, it's 1993. It's before like rock radio. You know, it's like Nirvana was happening.
You guys made a lot of choices, musical choices on that record now that are like ubiquitous in heavy music, you know, big tempo swings and things like that. I mean, sure, people use that, but not to the extent you guys did. And going back and listening to that was huge. I mean, did you have, you probably didn't, but what does it feel like knowing that you were at the forefront of like a major style of heavy music then?
We always had big aspirations and big ideas. And when people didn't tell us no, we just kept going with these ideas. So like even the very first shows, like our singer Keith is a trained classical pianist, and he would get up there on a podium with our logo hand painted on it, playing keyboards, singing to, you know, this heavy groovy music. And we almost aspired to be like a heavy Pink Floyd. Like if you look at our logo, it was almost like the Hammers, you know. And the first record was a concept album, you know. Pink Floyd's The Wall and also The Final Cut were big inspirations, and I'm not sure if that really came across. We kind of you know, we mixed Sabbath riffs in there and Metallica and Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front, and kind of all mashed up together, but there was a lot of heart in there, and that's what we got from Roger Waters and The Wall.
So he was like Pink Floyd and Roger. Was there one or two members of the band that were strongly influenced by that, or was everybody was just a fan?
Yeah, we all were. The Final Cut was like, that was our jam. Right
there.
Boy,
you guys are going to be best friends.
It's my favorite Floyd record, and they're all great. And that one is at the top of the list. It's such a powerful album.
Yeah, that's our favorite. And there's just so many moments where the whole band just disappears and it's just Roger with like a piano key, and then like some emotional saxophone comes in, and it's just like, what is this, you know? But it really just, even to this day, just gives us such goosebumps. And it's those dynamics that we tried to capture in our own music in our own way.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm glad we're talking, because Ugly, when it came out, it was a little bit softer, but this explains a lot. It was the point of Ugly to kind of explore more of the melody, slow it down a little bit, and expand your horizons?
We weren't in a good place when we did the Ugly record. We had done like two and a half years of relentless touring on River on Dread. we didn't have a lot of time to really get writing and in the studio to make the second record. We wrote a lot of it on the road, and we just weren't agreeing on a lot of stuff. Like, we decided to abandon our producer from River Run Dread, Josh Silver from Typo Negative.
Yep.
He had recorded all our demos up until that point. He was like really helped shape the sound of the band on that first record, and we were like, we're gonna try something new. And you know, bands do this stuff, you know. You get a little bit of success, and then all of a sudden the record label's like, well, you could have any producer you want. Who would you want, you know, to be on that list? And we were like, Terry Date, you know, Thompson and Barbiero, who did the Metallica record, and Guns N' Roses. And we ended up with Thompson and Barbiero, basically. Steve Thompson, the producer, went out on his own. He had worked on some other kind of rock records by himself without Barbiero, and decided to get in the studio with us. And we recorded Ugly in the same studio we did River Run Dread in Brooklyn, Systems 2, where they did all the Typo Negative records. And it just didn't sound the way that we had hoped. So we ended up bringing Barbiero into the mix. So he helped finish mixing the record. So we got the both of them, just at different times, and it wasn't a group project, you know what I mean? So like the outcome was, you know, there's still a handful of those songs on that record that we play in the set every night. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the way that it sounds itself compared to River Run Dread, but a lot of fans came on board during when that record came out, which was 30 years ago this year. And so they went back to listen to River Run Dread. So like you have different generations that have favorite records and, you know, got attached to certain sounds. And, you know, that kind of has been, you know, over the 30 years we've been doing this, every record kind of sounds a little different. You know, we kind of evolved, and we weren't into the cookie cutter formula like some other bands, you know, just churn out the same sound every time.
I love the record, and Let's Pretend at the time really worked with me because I was terrified of a girl that I wanted to talk to. and so when I heard that song, I'm like, oh, because I had a huge crush on her. And but the record in general, I love the direction. For me, it seemed like you saying Pink Floyd was a driver. This record seemed to go more towards the Pink Floyd way, and made a lot of sense. So, you know, let's move on to Soul Searching Sun. The question I had there was Weeds. How did that song come together? Because I think it's an amazing song. I know you guys still play it, and it's just a cool track. How did that come together? Because it really stands out on that record.
You know, that's just one of those magic moments when a song comes together really quickly. I had written the song seed for it, the verse and the chorus, and we kind of added a bridge, and it really, that was it. It was probably the easiest song we ever wrote. It just came very naturally, and it didn't change much from the original format. In fact, I've heard a lot of bands cover it over the years, and they do some interesting things that we didn't do, and that always opens my eyes to like, oh, where we could have explored it. You know, it's basically just a rock track with a punk beat, you know. But you can really play it in a number of different ways. In fact, we just got back from an acoustic tour that we did, and we incorporated Weeds into the acoustic set, and it had a whole different feel, you know. So you could play that song any which way. I've heard it just, you know, a cappella. I've heard it, you know, singer with a piano. I've heard it with a full orchestra. It really is something that can be played in all different types of ways.
Is it still mind-blowing to you when you hear somebody else like bring an orchestra in to do a cover of one of your tracks?
It's inspiring, you know. It's like, we should do it. We should do, you know. I'm sure that's what happened with Metallica, you know, bringing in orchestras and, you know, violins and all this stuff. You know, people want to try new things, and we've always, like I said, we've been into kind of orchestrated type of composition. So, you know, inspired by Pink Floyd. So, you know, that's always something that we're looking to do. Even, you know, maybe next year, you know, we would love to, take what we did with the acoustic set and expand on it with other instruments, and make it even more layered in texture. It could be
Are
cool.
we breaking news here? You bring us the symphony in for this?
You never know, man. It's like we're always into trying new things and also challenging ourselves, as players and songwriters.
Yeah. What's the across all the albums, what's the average writing process like? Is it yourself or somebody else brings like just a general idea and then the band fleshes it out together in a room all together, or how does that work?
I think every record had its different process, I think it all starts with an idea. And then, sometimes songs take a long time to finish. You could have a verse and a chorus and it really doesn't go anywhere after that. And then you put it to the side until it finally someone, is like, I know what we could do with that. Or we change the tempo and all of a sudden it inspires people to have more ideas about it.
Yeah.
We've changed tunings, we've changed beats, we've changed all kinds of things to push ideas in every different direction, and not everything comes as quickly as Weeds. In fact, there's a lot of songs on Ugly where there's a lot of different intricate parts and weird transitions and tempo changes, like you're saying, and some songs are more straightforward. It really depends on the song and doing what's best for the song.
Going back to the acoustic sets, did you happen to record them? And will we maybe get a little EP or something like that out of that?
We did record them, but I think that if we were going to release something, we'd probably do something a little bit more involved.
More involved, okay.
Yeah.
Like when you bring the orchestra in.
Yeah, exactly.
Next year. Right. Yeah.
Or you can get Josh out of retirement and have him go. He seemed to make big sounds with Type O back in the day, for sure.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite place to be in the process? Do you love being in the studio and tracking material, or is it the writing process that you're more a fan of, or on tour? Where's your happy place?
One thing I've learned about myself, whether it's, drawing a book or coming up with a song, I really like the process, the whole journey of it, because it's like a simple idea of humming a tune in the shower or drawing a sketch on a napkin and then seeing the finished book or hearing the recording at the end of it. As long as that takes, sometimes it could take years, but it's really the journey of seeing something just from your imagination come to something tangible is really exciting for me.
But there isn't a spot in there that you find particularly arduous or that you really can't wait to get to?
I've gotten over that. Like, I'll be happy when this happens. I used to feel that way. Like, oh, I can't wait to play the song in front of a crowd, or I can't wait for us to get inducted to a Metal Hall of Fame. I'm like, all these things are great in their own right. Even the simple idea, sometimes coming up with an idea, you could just feel it, that there's something special about it, but it's just this big at the time.
Yeah.
And you have, at least I do, I have a vision for these things of what the potential could be. And that's what's exciting.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I love these comics, Killogy. I love all your work. But Frank Vincent, he was amazing on The Sopranos, just such a face and a presence. And putting him in a comic was, to me, just a stroke of brilliance. And I cherish him. I actually have a comic book, one of the old school comic racks that says Wholesome Comics Entertaining on it. And I have these comics in my living room, so everybody comes in and it is commented on. They're like, isn't that the guy from The Sopranos? and so tell us a little bit about Frank, because you got to know him before he passed. And I think I saw some interviews with you, but I think it's important to bring him up and keep him alive, and talk about him.
Yeah. Well, going back to these like crazy ideas and seeing them through.
Sure.
I had an idea to kind of make a Twilight Zone type of series where 3 characters have 3 separate stories that intertwine, and that's why it's called Killogy. It's like a trilogy of 3 characters. So it was a mini series I did with IDW, and I had this idea to kind of cast a comic book, which really hasn't been done, at least not that I've seen in the way that I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Keanu Reeves actually did it later. But anyway, like Twilight Zone would have guest stars, with every episode. And that was kind of the idea. Let me get 3 people that you wouldn't normally see interacting with each other, put them in a story together and see what happens. And so to pitch that idea to people, to celebrities, especially someone like Frank Vincent or Marky Ramone or, Doyle from the Misfits, it hadn't been done before. So it was very risky to get in a room with them and try and pitch this idea. And Frank loved it immediately. He actually loved comic books. He loved the idea of storytelling in the visual format like that. And he thought he got a kick out of being a comic book star, So we had a lot of meetings and talk about his face, right? I was late for a meeting once, and the traffic was just terrible, and his face waiting. When I saw him at his place, I was like, "Oh, I'm getting whacked,"
Yeah, you're gonna be hanging off the Brooklyn Bridge,
But you know what? He was such a sweetheart, and every time I hung out with him, and that's just his face, man. He has that mean mug, man. And we actually, I don't know if you like the comics, but we were also developing that Killogy as a animated TV show, and we did a 6-minute teaser that was fully animated. It's online. You can watch it. If you go to killogyanimated.com, I think Rolling Stone had presented it for us. And we recorded Frank's voices in his kitchen, on my laptop, And so he's reading from the script and he's cursing and this and that. And every time we did a take and we pressed stop, he would apologize to his wife in the other room for being so angry and dropping all these F-bombs every 5 seconds.
You hid the bodies down here? What are you, nuts?
No. Not the bodies, just the fucking heads, stupid. Fuck this.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you ever pinch yourself? You wake up and go, I can't believe I'm doing what I do.
I'm very, very fortunate. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. At the same time, it's like I'm just one of those personalities that sometimes it doesn't really sink in, like all the things that I've done, and until you go and look at them or someone reminds you of it, like you just did. But it has been amazing when you look at all these crazy stories and moments.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, these comics have watched my kids grow up because they've been sitting on that comic book rack, and they're 13 and 11, and they've been looking at them, and they expect these comics to be in a living room.
Right.
Your artwork is part of our family, and that's pretty cool when you really think about it. And I'm sure everybody tells you that all the time when you go to the comic conventions, but kudos to you, man. Talented dude, and you've kicked in the door on a number of industries, and it's pretty great.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. What's your perfect day? And this can include artwork, music, family, whatever. Like, what is the perfect day for Alan?
I think it's like a great balance of like just being a normal guy with his family, whether taking my daughter to school, having lunch with my wife, running some errands, drawing a couple of pages during the day, having a couple of cool meetings about ideas or projects, because each of these comic books are in different stages of being adapted into film and TV or video games.
Yeah.
So those are really exciting, and there's a lot of creative people involved, and I like the whole process of it, and then being able to jam with the band, get ready for a tour. So it's really about the balance of all the things, and I don't like to sit around and just watch sports on TV. I get bored, and I like to be creating something, and I like to be busy, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Does your daughter know who you are? You know what I mean? Or are you just dad to her? Or are you Alan Robert from Life of Agony?
No, I think, it's funny because she's gotten into horror the last couple of years. So She's got into horror and also, some metal music. And so I think the stuff that I've done is seeping more into her world, and the people that she interacts with think it's cool, which makes her think it's cool. Yeah,
that's really cool. Well, the artwork, Derek is and has always been a huge comic fan. My wife and I are into the adult coloring books.
Really?
And yeah, and I've got one of yours on the way to my house right now, and I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love the work that you do, man. It's really great, and we as your audience are fortunate that you've put out a lot of it.
Yeah,
you have not been sleeping behind the wheel.
Yeah, I've kind of always been that way. I don't really sleep that much. I go to bed late. I wake up early. I just like to be busy and active, and usually the ideas wake me up, and it's hard to go back to sleep after that. But I have to say, like, doing the writing and drawing the graphic novels for many years is such a different experience than drawing the adult coloring books, because while I could be in this room, for 6 months just drawing all by myself and then release a graphic novel, it's cool when you meet folks at conventions that dig it. But with the coloring books, it's like a day-to-day event, because people constantly post their color work.
Yeah.
And they tag me in books that I drew 6 years ago, and so it's like this never-ending art project between me and the fans. And their color work inspires me to draw new pages, because I could see which pages work the best and different techniques that they use to color them in. Mm-hmm. And so it's really it's a big learning experience, first of all, and it's something that I've been doing for the last 10 years that started as a spoof on adult coloring books, to be honest, because back in 2016, when adult coloring books were all the rage, right? All the books were basically nature books or mandala designs.
Right.
And I was like, where's all the coloring books for horror fans? None exist. And I was like, I'm going to make one, and I just set out to make the ultimate horror adult coloring book, kind of as a joke, because I was taking these beautiful like flower scenes and dropping a zombie corpse in the middle of it, or a city at night under a moon with a vampire. So like, just as a horror fan, I wanted to do it, and I thought it was funny also.
Obviously it's been received well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been primarily outside of the band the most. That's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, basically.
That's so great.
Do you think that you'd be doing this if not for Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi and all the original Universal monster movies?
Absolutely not. And I was so fortunate to be asked to draw the official Universal Monsters coloring book that came out last year.
It's amazing.
And that was really a dream job, because I know those characters and I know those movies, like the back of my hand. So what a pleasure.
Yeah, I go to sleep to those movies every night, and some people think I'm a little creepy for doing that, but they're a very comfortable place to sleep to.
You are a very creepy guy, though.
Yes,
so
I am.
That's
true.
Fair.
Which is your favorite out of that whole?
I love Frankenstein.
Yeah,
I just love. I think it's cool about him is he's innocent. Actually, he doesn't know he's a monster. And
right.
when you take a creature that doesn't know that they're a creature or something looking evil or scary and make them innocent, that's what makes horror kind of interesting and cool. And they did a really good job with that.
They did. Definitely a classic. So I heard they're remaking it again.
Yeah, I think they're redoing all of them, bringing like the Nosferatu movie that just came out. And, Bill Skarsgård is going to be a busy guy because he seems to be the one that gets all these roles.
Yeah.
He's a lucky dude.
I brought my daughter to see that one, right? So she's getting into horror. Pennywise and It, when they remade that was her favorite. Mm-hmm. But we went and saw Barbarian, which she loved. But then I took her to Nosferatu, and you know how long it is, man. It was like she fell asleep at like the hour and a half mark, woke up and there was still an hour left. She was like, why is there so much breathing in this movie?
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
What's your go-to? What's your favorite?
I love Creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, it's just something about the underwater sea creatures for me, and how powerful he is. You know, like throwing cars aside and stuff. You know, but I'm also a big fan of like the '80s Evil Dead 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I like the horror when they put the comedy in there too. I like some of that. You know,
a little levity sprinkled in there. Yeah,
it's just it's so twisted to me that I love it. You know,
Freddy Krueger, the one-liners from Freddy.
Yeah, Freddy. You know, I was always a big Freddy guy, but of course, I really love the psychological horror. Like The Shining's probably my favorite movie. Period. That one, and you know, even like you know, smaller movies like Jacob's Ladder or something like that.
Man, yeah, that's a powerful flick. What are you into that would surprise people? Like, what's a go-to that you've always loved that might, you know, people might go, oh, no, that can't possibly be.
Well, I'm a huge Denzel Washington fan, so anything like Training Day, or we would just watch Malcolm X the other night again. He made that movie Fallen years ago.
Oh God, with John Goodman.
Yeah, we love that one.
Fantastic movie. John Goodman's, the way he sings throughout that movie is so good.
Is on my side.
Yeah, and Gandolfini's in there a little bit, and yeah, that's a great one.
If I may, I want to bounce back to the albums for a minute, if you don't mind, and we can certainly cut this if this isn't something you're interested in sharing. But I wanted to talk about Broken Valley and what happened with Sony and Epic with the Rootkit software. For those, and please feel free to explain it again if it's something you're okay talking about, because it's a fascinating topic for me.
Yeah, sure. So we signed to Sony Epic Records 2005. We put out a record called Broken Valley. And what had happened was, while we were on tour promoting that record, Sony was hit with a class action lawsuit from fans that basically put CDs that they were putting out into their computer, and their computers would go haywire because Sony had allegedly put some kind of spyware program on the CDs themselves. And I'm not just talking about our CD, I'm talking about all the CDs that Sony was putting out that year, to try and prevent piracy. And so, music fans were just putting their CDs in the computer, and then it would lock up their computer. And then, basically Sony got sued, they lost, and they were forced to recall all the CDs they put this on, including ours, and they only re-released the bigger artists. So we were out there on tour supporting a record that people couldn't get. And it was kind of like really hit us hard after working so many months on the album and spending, tons of money. And then it kind of disheartened us about the whole music industry after that. And, it was after a bunch of tours, we just kind of like went on hiatus because we just couldn't believe what happened. It was awful. It really was awful for the artists.
Yeah, well, it was such a kick in the nuts across the board. I mean, the fans were taken advantage of by, essentially a major company like Sony, like you said, planting spyware on their machines. All the bands took it in the nuts because all their material got pulled off the shelves. And even the bands whose albums did get re-released, they got it, again, because there was that delay and their fans were made to wait. They were made to wait. I mean, it was so frustrating from a fan's perspective. And, as a musician myself, just how maddening that must have been for you guys and for all those artists. The kind of shit that big companies can pull and often get away with at worst case, a slap on the wrist. And you guys, there was no real recourse for you after that, was there, for the band?
No, we just we were able to get off the label pretty easily because of it. But it was like, that was our first taste at signing to a major label. We had been with indies our whole career, and we were just
what a terrible first outing with a big outfit. I'm so sorry.
Terrible. We definitely live up to our name very very well over the years.
Well, how have things been with Napalm? You signed with them in 2015, 2016, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I forget the dates, but yeah, we did 2 records with them. right now we're not with a label. We put out some just a song last year, like
The Crow.
Great song.
Tribute to Brandon Lee and the Crow, the original Crow. And we're just kind of like, we don't have the pressure of like, oh, it's time to, we're off the road, we got to make a record, go back out on the road, promote it. It's like we're kind of past that kind of mentality. We're able to kind of do what we want when we want it and when it feels right. And I think that the music industry has also changed over time. And while the old school fans are more album oriented, I think the younger generation is more song oriented. And even 10 years ago, I had younger cousins that I checked out their playlists on their iPods at the time or whatever it was. And, they had songs. It wasn't albums. No one was really listening to albums that way, except people from our generation and older. So as the world changes and music fans' tastes change, I think that, the releases will also kind of change. So we're not in a rush to just throw anything out there for the sake of it.
That seems smart. Like Rob Flynn talked about that. He from Machine Head, he said that they're putting out songs and 3 songs here. And we did an interview with Brian Fair from Shadows Fall, and their next record is not going to be a record. It's going to be a series of releases. And that seems like a good trend. Attention deficit, right? We live in a society where phones have, deteriorated young people's minds to the point where they can't actually focus on anything for longer than maybe, 10 minutes at tops. And so it makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's that, and it's also, it's our attention too. It's like, we're all doing different things outside of the band. We all, Joey and I have daughters and wives. And so like, we have other things going on in our lives at this time, and to just come off the road and everyone just focus on writing 10, 12 songs and then recording it. I mean, you're talking about years of time devoted to that project. And I'm not saying we won't do, but it's not a priority right now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Spoiler NYC.
Yeah.
Why are you only banned in 38 states, and are you actively seeking bans from the other 12?
I was looking for an excuse because it was a side project. I was looking for an excuse not to go on a full tour with that project. So if you're banned in 38 out of the 50 states, it gives you an excuse to just stay local.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a great explanation. Thank you for it.
One of many. Plus my guitarist was locked up for a while. So
okay, that'll do it too. Well, listen, we don't want to take up too much more of your time. Sorry, but I do want to hit you with a series of quickie questions. Just simple one-word answers. I throw a couple options at you. You tell me which you're down with. All right?
Yeah.
Fingers or picks?
Picks.
I figured as much. Sweet or salty?
Spicy.
Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Zeppelin or Sabbath?
Sabbath.
Ford or Chevy?
Chevy.
Okay. Grace or Power?
Grace.
Nice. And lastly, day or night?
Night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Alan, we appreciate your time. For our listeners and viewers, you can see Life of Agony on tour with Biohazard in the UK and across Europe, starting February 22nd in Belfast. And so go to lifeofagony.com. You can find out where to see them. And hopefully we'll see you guys in the States, maybe.
Yeah.
And we look forward to new music, new art, and a little bit of everything. We really appreciate the time, Alan.
Yes, we do.
This was a lot of fun talking to you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Yeah, you guys too.
All right.